who's holding this strange bag in his hand. And it's just a fact that those identical bags are found in ancient Sumer.
You might think it's just a humble little pouch, but these carved handbags show up in the oldest art on every continent.
I call them man bags. And in that case, at Göbekli Tepe, we know they're at least 11,600 years old.
From the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the pyramids of Mesoamerica, through Asian temples and African rock faces, the same curious symbol keeps cropping up. What could explain its global reach? Archaeologists have puzzled over this tiny icon for generations, until Graham Hancock stepped in with a theory that turns everything on its head. Join us as we unpack this global mystery and reveal the astonishing discoveries that could rewrite history as we know it. A global mystery in stone. From the wind-tossed ridges of southeastern Turkey to the sun-baked plains of Mesoamerica, this tiny pouch-shaped carving keeps popping up, and it's grabbing the attention of anyone who studies ancient art.
The handbag-like carvings can be found in ancient carvings worldwide.
No single culture or corner of the world owns the handbag motif. Instead, it shows up again and again, carved in stone, painted on walls, woven into myths. Let's take a closer look at some of the most striking examples and consider what this little symbol might have meant to people millennia ago. Climb Göbekli Tepe, and you're standing in front of a temple complex that's more than 13,000 years old. Massive T-shaped pillars rise from the ground, each one carved with animals, snakes, foxes, wild boars, and strange human figures. Then, tucked among the creatures, you spot them, 3 small handbag shapes, carved side by side. They're not the centerpiece. They're almost easy to miss, yet here they are, deep at the heart of a place that's probably older than farming itself. The temple seems to have hosted ceremonies. Animal bones point to feasts or sacrifices. So why carve a little pouch next to a boar or a vulture? No one's quite sure, but it's the first major clue that this symbol wasn't just a one-off doodle.
That simple hunter-gatherers could produce such spectacular monumental structures.
Fast forward nearly 10,000 years to ancient Assyria in what's now northern Iraq. Kings like Ashurnasirpal II, who ruled around 880 BC, built grand palaces covered in stone reliefs. Warriors parade scenes, gods loom large, and every now and then, a figure holds a small boxy bag by its handle, exactly the same shape as the Göbekli Tepe carvings take. These reliefs line the walls of throne rooms and courtyards, places where the most important events were immortalized in stone. Was that little bag a sign of status? A container for ritual items, or something more mysterious? Its repeated appearance suggests it wasn't random. Across the globe, in the steamy jungles of southern Mexico, the Olmecs were carving colossal heads and building ceremonial centers between roughly 1200 and 400 BC.
As the Olmecs. It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America.
Hidden among their artworks are reliefs showing a human figure striding forward, one hand dangling a purse-like object. The lines and proportions match the Assyrian pouch almost exactly, even though these two civilizations never met, as far as mainstream history goes. Did the shape feel meaningful to both groups independently? Or is there a deeper link we haven't cracked yet? Head way south to New Zealand, and the Maori speak of a hero journeying to the realm of the gods. When he comes home, he carries 3 baskets brimming with divine knowledge: how to plant crops, how to read the stars, maybe even how to build sturdy canoes. In carvings and woven art, those baskets look remarkably like the pouch shapes at Göbekli Tepe. Here, though, they're wrapped in story, not stone. The baskets are more than containers. They're a bridge between ordinary life and the mysterious world beyond. In ancient Egypt, language took shape in hieroglyphs, tiny pictures that stand for sounds or ideas. One recurring symbol looks just like a little handbag with a curved handle. It's often translated as bag or altar offering. You'll see it floating next to a pharaoh's name or tucked into a cartouche on temple walls. Sometimes it's shown hanging from a priest's belt, as if ready to hold incense or sacred tools. Was it just a practical marker? This word means pouch. Or did it carry extra weight because of a shared, older meaning?
Does the mysterious handbag imply a global connection that rivals our interconnected modern world.
What makes the handbag motif so fascinating is its reach. From the hills of Turkey to the rivers of Iraq, from the jungles of Mexico to the coasts of New Zealand and the sands of Egypt, people kept choosing the same simple shape. A small, handle-topped container, easy to sketch, easy to carve. Archaeologists and art historians offer lots of down-to-earth ideas. Let's take a look at some of these theories. One shape, many meanings. At first glance, those tiny bag carvings look like nothing more than sketches of everyday pouches. After all, people everywhere have used bags for millennia. To haul grains, haul tools, even haul lunch leftovers. So the easiest answer seems to be, these are just artful doodles of items folks knew well. No big secret there, right? But as you circle back through each culture's take on the handbag motif, the simple explanation starts to fall apart.
And that is, they will look at similarities of some kind of object between cultures, and they'll assume a link.
Take ancient Assyria, for instance. In the palaces of Nineveh, reliefs show a figure clutching a small pouch, yet scholars whisper it held something far from ordinary. They call it magic dust, a powdered mix said to heal the sick or ward off evil spirits. Suddenly, that unassuming bag feels more like a sacred kit than a market tote. Hop over to the lush jungles of the Olmecs, and you find essentially the same carving, but now experts speculate it contained mind-altering herbs. According to researchers like Freeborn at Noah's Age, those ancient villagers might have used the pouch to keep plants that opened the mind in rituals or shamanic ceremonies. Two cultures, thousands of miles apart, carving the same shape, yet imagining completely different contents. Then there's the Maori of New Zealand. Their legends tell of a hero who journeyed to the gods' realm and came back clutching 3 baskets brimming with celestial wisdom, skills to plant crops, read the sky, and build canoes. When those baskets are carved or woven, they look strikingly like the pouches at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, where 3 handbag shapes are etched onto pillars dating back around 11,000 years.
Is it possible that the Göbekli Tepe builders were actually sending us a message?
Here, the bag is less about tricks or potions and more a vessel of gratitude, a token to honor the gift of knowledge. Slide over to Egypt, and you'll see yet another twist in the handbag tale. In hieroglyphs, a small looped shape often translates to purse or altar bag, but some scholars argue it represents a tiny tent. The looped top mimics the curved poles, the flat bottom the skins or cloth draped over them. It's as if the artisans shrank a portable shrine into a fingertip-sized symbol, one that echoes the teepees of North America and the yurts of Central Asia. A simple bag becomes a miniature house for the divine.
A handbag is something that there's no chance that 2 independent cultures could come up with on their own.
Now, you might protest. Surely they're all just carving what they know, small containers used every day. But consider how each culture layers different meanings onto that same silhouette. In one place, it's a powder holder for sorcery. In another, a stash for mindbenders. Elsewhere, a basket of holy lore, or a nomad's shelter. If these carvings were purely practical, we'd expect local twists, but not such wildly varied interpretations tied to the supernatural. What's more, there's no evidence these societies communicated with one another. The Assyrians and Olmecs didn't swap art books. The builders of Göbekli Tepe didn't lecture the Maori on basket weaving. Yet, when they reached for the chisel or stylus, they landed on the same quaint shape again and again. It's almost as if the design floated around in the human imagination, waiting to be plucked wherever a community needed a simple yet powerful symbol.
The ancient Sumerians were not the only culture fascinated by handbags. Their neighbors, the Assyrians, also used the symbol.
Various theories try to make sense of this. Maybe that's why these little handbags have stuck around in our curiosity. They're humble enough to belong in a kitchen or a temple, yet enigmatic enough to stir wonder. Their simplicity invites countless stories, and each story opens the door to yet more questions. In that way, the ancient handbag isn't just a stone carving. It's a challenge, a tease, a wink from our ancestors saying, "Go on, dig deeper. We've left you just enough to chase, but not enough to finish the hunt." And perhaps that's the true magic they hold. The cosmic theory. There's a seemingly straightforward explanation for these mysterious little handbags. And yet, it's pretty fascinating once you dig into it. Picture the semicircular top of the pouch as the curve of the sky, the dome that holds our sun, moon, and stars. Then see the square bottom as the solid earth beneath our feet, the ground where we grow food, build our homes, and live our day-to-day lives. Richard Scranton, who's spent years studying symbols from ancient Africa to India to China, points out a neat pattern. Round shapes almost always stood for things you can't touch: spirit, ideas, the heavens, while square shapes symbolized the material world: land, walls, tools. So when those two shapes meet in one simple icon, a half circle sitting on a square, you get a clever shorthand for the union of the tangible and the unseen.
Finally come to grips with the idea that extraterrestrials had something to do with our development.
Imagine you're an artist or craftsman thousands of years ago. You don't have fancy telescopes or satellites. You simply look up at night and see that perfect dome of stars. Down below, you feel the earth firm under your sandals. Those two realms, one you can kick a rock in, the other you can only wonder about, were both vital to your life. Carving that little bag-shaped symbol would have been a brilliant way to say, here's our whole world, both seen and unseen, wrapped up in one. But why choose a bag instead of a plain circle on a square? Think about how everyone used bags back then, to carry seeds for planting, tools for building, or offerings for ceremonies. A bag is a vessel that holds what matters most. By shaping the cosmic idea into a pouch, ancient people might have been inviting everyone to open up and hold both earth and sky in their hands, just like you'd carry precious items in a real bag. Imagine stumbling across that symbol on a temple wall or a carved pillar. You might feel a sense of balance, knowing that your fields flourish because rain falls from the heavens. Or you might sense comfort, believing that your prayers ride the same arch of sky that brings dawn's first light. That little handbag could have been a powerful reminder. We live between two worlds, and they're both essential. Scranton's insight about circles and squares also explains why this symbol popped up in so many different places, from Turkey to Mexico to New Zealand. Everyone, everywhere, sees the same sky bending overhead and feels the same earth underfoot. So when people wanted a simple image for everything that exists, they might have independently sketched the same pouch shape. No need for travelers or trade routes, just shared human experience. And here's the real beauty of it. That tiny, handle-topped carving could pack in the biggest ideas, linking spirit and matter, mystery and reality, heaven and home. It shows us that sometimes the simplest pictures carry the deepest meanings. The time travel theory. According to one theory, the mysterious handbags could actually be signs of time travel. The idea goes like this.
Maybe time travel makes sense if we think of it on the level of individual particles.
These carved handbag shapes look an awful lot like the modern handbags we see today. Designer totes, clutch bags, that kind of thing. But here's the catch. Those didn't exist thousands of years ago. So how on earth did ancient artists all over the world end up carving something so oddly similar? That's where the time travel theory kicks in. Maybe, just maybe, these weren't ordinary ancient artists. Maybe they saw someone, or something, from the future. Someone carrying a very familiar-looking bag. And it's not just the handbags that raise eyebrows. Over the years, researchers and conspiracy theorists have pointed out all kinds of ancient carvings and artifacts that seem out of place, like figures that look like they're holding cell phones, wearing spacesuits, or using laptops. Obviously, ancient people didn't have tech like that. So, where did these images come from? Could these ancient civilizations have been visited by time travelers? People from the future who accidentally, or maybe even intentionally, left behind hints of modern life? It's a big stretch, sure.
But maybe the reason we have difficulties understanding time travel is that we think of it on the macroscopic level.
But when you look at how the same handbag shape keeps popping up across the globe, in Turkey, Iraq, Mexico, New Zealand, and Egypt, it starts to feel less like a coincidence and more like a puzzle we haven't solved yet. So maybe these handbags weren't just containers for herbs or offerings. Maybe they were never just bags at all. Maybe they were tools or devices or something we wouldn't even recognize. Maybe they held secrets, knowledge, power, even technology that we've completely lost to time. The more you think about it, the stranger it gets. And that's part of the magic, because with every new theory, the mystery deepens. And the question becomes not just what these handbags were, but who brought them here and why. Hancock and the Ancient Handbag. Graham Hancock is a writer and explorer who spent decades digging into the mysteries of our past. He's best known for challenging the usual way we look at ancient monuments and lost civilizations. Hancock doesn't just accept that history began where our school books do. He asks what might have happened before, and for him, these little handbags carved into stones all over the world hold huge clues. Hancock noticed that same small pouch popping up everywhere, in the ruins of Mesopotamia, on the pillars of ancient temples, even woven into far-off island legends. It's always the same simple shape, a boxy bottom with a curved handle on top, almost too plain to be noticed, yet it keeps turning up in the hands of gods, heroes, and mythical teachers. That got Hancock wondering, what if this wasn't a random doodle by different artists, but a secret badge carried by ancient visitors who shared their knowledge with early humans? The story starts in the cradle of civilization, where Babylonian myths talk about the 7 sages, wise figures who arrived when people lived like wild beasts, with no rules or manners.
It was a quest for a lost civilization.
According to Berossos, these sages taught early Mesopotamians arts and crafts, law, and language, everything needed to build cities and settle into civilized life. And every time they show up in clay tablets or carvings, they're holding that same little pouch. It's almost as if the bag itself was their trademark, a sign that they carried wisdom far beyond what local traditions could offer. Then there's the famous flood legend. Enki, the god of wisdom, warns a man named Ziusudra about a world-ending deluge. Ziusudra builds a boat, loads it with family, animals, and crucially, clay tablets packed with every scrap of human knowledge.
Ziusudra was a real man, and Ziusudra was a Sumerian king.
After the waters recede, he hides those tablets in Sippar, the city of the sun, so the lessons aren't lost forever. When the survivors spread across new lands, they carried that buried wisdom in memory, and maybe in tiny bags. Hancock argues that those clay tablets, like secret instruction manuals, might have been symbolized by the pouch in later carvings. What drives Hancock's theory is the idea of an advanced civilization long lost to time, one that predates all known history and somehow survived a global cataclysm. Its members, the bearers of knowledge, traveled far and wide, dropping seeds of civilization wherever they landed. The handbag is their calling card, a way to say, "We've been here. We brought tools, ideas, maybe even glimpses of the stars." Over millennia, those visitors vanished, but their symbol stayed behind, carved into stone and whispered in myth. Skeptics point out that a pouch is a simple shape and that humans everywhere use bags. They argue it's natural for artists to carve what they see around them. But Hancock sees too many precise echoes across cultures with no clear way to talk to each other. He imagines a hidden lineage of teachers, keepers of a forgotten wisdom, who marked their presence with that same little bag. And if you follow the trail, you're not just tracing art, you're chasing the footprints of an ancient network that might have jump-started human progress in multiple corners of the world. Whether you buy into Hancock's vision or not, his handbag theory shines a spotlight on how much we still don't know. It asks us to look beyond the obvious, to see symbols as potential messages from voices long silenced. And it reminds us that even the smallest carving can carry the weight of an epic story. Tracing the lost civilization. If Hancock's theory about an ancient lost civilization is true, then one more piece of the puzzle needs to be explored: the cataclysm. Think back to all those stories of great floods, from Noah's Ark in the Bible to Ziusudra's tale in Mesopotamia.
Now, talk a little bit about Noah's Ark scans, who you guys are, how you formed, and what you're trying to accomplish.
For centuries, people treated these as myths, bedtime stories passed down through generations. But what if they weren't just stories? What if they were eyewitness accounts of a real, world-changing disaster? Scholars link these flood legends to a period called the Younger Dryas, around 12,000 years ago. It wasn't just a chill in the air. Ice sheets crept south, giant lakes burst their banks, and storms shook the land. Coastlines shifted, forests drowned, and whole communities were wiped out. In a blink of geological time, life as people knew it went topsy-turvy. Now, imagine a handful of survivors from this global meltdown. According to Hancock, these weren't ordinary folks. They may have been members of that advanced civilization we can't find in our textbooks. Some ancient texts name them the Seven Sages, like Oan's, who supposedly walked out of the sea to teach people writing, math, and farming. These weren't just wise teachers, they were living bridges between a lost golden age and the new, battered world. After the waters receded and the ice thawed, these survivors could have spread out across the globe. Picture them carrying their knowledge like a toolkit, seeds of wisdom that would sprout into cities, laws, and technologies we still use. And everywhere they went, they left a tiny mark. That little handbag motif. What if those pouches were more than carvings? What if they symbolized the knowledge boxes these teachers carried? Handy bundles of secrets needed to rebuild civilization? Here's where it gets really intriguing. Suddenly, the same handbag shape appears in Sumer, Egypt, the Americas, and beyond. It's as if those seven sages, or their followers, made a secret sign to show, "We come bearing gifts." To everyday people, a bag meant tools or treasures. To those in the know, it might have meant, "Open me to find the spark that will light up your world again." Could this lost civilization be the true source of every ancient wisdom and craft that popped up around the world? When you see the pyramids in Egypt, the ziggurats in Mesopotamia, or the temples in Teotihuacan, could you also be seeing echoes of the same seeds sown by these post-deluge survivors? The clues might be hidden in carvings, myths, and, yes, those tiny stone handbags.
Multiple cultures around the world have similar illustrations of handbag-like objects.
So what are these ancient handbags really? Just pretty symbols? Or do they hold a deeper secret? Keys to understanding how human knowledge took off after a global disaster? Graham Hancock's theory pushes us to ask bigger questions. Who were the true architects of early civilization? And what happened to their home, so advanced it left no ruins we can find? If Hancock is right, then every handbag carving is more than art. It's a breadcrumb from a vanished world. Follow those crumbs, and you might just walk in the footsteps of people who reshaped humanity after the cataclysm. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the next piece of the puzzle waiting to be uncovered. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. The sandstone walls of the temple were crumbling, but the carvings remained sharp. Strange gods clutching what looked like handbags, identical to ones found half a world away in ruins that shouldn't be connected. Dr. Ilara Chen brushed dust from a worn inscription, her pulse quickening. The symbols matched those she'd studied from Göbekli Tepe, Olmec monuments, and even Angkor Wat. Weeks earlier, she'd dismissed the theory as fringe nonsense. Graham Hancock's theory on time travel and ancient handbags. Her colleague had laughed, waving a dog-eared copy of Hancock's latest book. But now, standing beneath the hot Sumerian sun, Ilara wasn't laughing. In her satchel was a piece of obsidian etched with matching designs, found not in a dig, but sealed inside a lead-lined box in a medieval European crypt. Impossible, unless the theory was right. That night, she placed the obsidian inside the altar recess, aligning it with the carvings. A hum filled the chamber. Light pulsed from the stone, then silence. The carvings had changed. One of the gods now held something else, her own notebook. Had someone, or something, sent it back or forward? And if the ancient handbags weren't just symbols, but tools, what were they meant to unlock? Traces of a forgotten power grid? Imagine stepping into an ancient palace in Mesopotamia and spotting a stone carving. A group of people gathered around a big, twisting tree. In each person's hand is a little pouch, just like the mysterious handbags we've been tracking. Some thinkers believe that the tree isn't just any tree, but a giant lightning coil, something like the Tesla coil Nikola Tesla dreamed up to send electricity through the air. If that's true, then those tiny bags could have been the batteries of their day, storing the power generated by this massive coil. Now, in Egypt, archaeologists have uncovered symbols that look a lot like Tesla coils. etched onto temple walls alongside the familiar Ankh symbol. Could the Egyptians have tapped into the same kind of energy network? Maybe their little handbag shapes weren't just decorations, but real tools.
Ancient Sumerians were more than familiar with handbags, or perhaps objects that modern people perceive.
Devices for carrying electricity, or perhaps even packets of energy that priests and pharaohs used in rituals. But wait, there's more. Head southwest to the jungles of Central America, and you'll find carvings of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. In one relief, he cradles a small pouch exactly like those in Mesopotamia. Some suggest that the god, or whoever he represents, is actually sitting inside a flying machine, and that the little bag is part of the power system keeping the craft aloft. It sounds out there, but the carving even shows what looks like a pilot's seat and controls. Not far from there, in Veracruz, Mexico, archaeologists uncovered a carving of a figure that looks startlingly like a modern astronaut.
Thinks that the bags were used as gravity devices to keep the ancient astronauts' feet firmly planted on the ground.
This figure sports what appears to be a helmet and tubes similar to a life support system. Plus, you guessed it, a tiny pouch at their side. Could that little bag have been a power cell or energy module? If you squint, it's hard to dismiss the resemblance. Across 3 continents, in cultures separated by oceans and time, we keep seeing this same simple icon, a small, handle-topped pouch. In some places, it's in the hands of gods. In others, it's part of electric-looking trees or strange flying machines. What if none of this is coincidental? What if, long before our modern world, there was a network of energy technologies, lost to history but hinted at in stone carvings? Maybe these handbags were the common link, a universal tool, handed down by a civilization that understood electricity or some other form of power we still haven't rediscovered.
I'll focus on the puzzling stone handbags originated in ancient Iran, which were also discovered in Mesopotamian temples.
They might have served as portable batteries, magic to our ancestors, but the real deal to anyone who knew how to build the big coils and transmit energy wirelessly. Of course, mainstream scholars will raise eyebrows. They'll point out that ancient people knew nothing of modern electricity and that these shapes are just art. But when you connect the dots, the coil-like trees in Mesopotamia, the energy glyphs in Egypt, the flying gods in Mesoamerica, it starts to look like there might have been more to those carvings than meets the eye. The ritual tools of ancient Mesopotamia. Interestingly, some experts will tell you that what many call the mystery handbag isn't a bag at all. It's actually 2 ritual tools, a bucket in one hand and a cone in the other. You'll spot them most often in the hands of those winged figures, sometimes called genies, carved on the walls of Assyrian palaces between 911 and 605 BCE. Picture a relief panel in an ancient throne room. A winged genie stands beside a stylized tree, its branches curling like tendrils. In his left hand dangles a bucket, and in his right hand, he holds up a pointed cone. Sometimes, you'll even see the genie raising the cone high.
They once carried by the winged genies, semi-gods Abaklu from Mesopotamia.
While the bucket swings by his side, almost like he's about to give you a blessing. You'll find these same images in art from the Neo-Sumerian, Old Assyrian, Babylonian, and Middle Assyrian empires too, though they get really common in the Neo-Assyrian period. So what exactly are these 2 objects? The cone is usually thought to be a pine cone from the Turkish pine tree, Pinus brucea, which grew all over ancient Assyria. Some say it's actually the male flower of a date palm, those little pollen-filled blooms that farmers used to dust over their crops. There's even a theory that these cones were simply clay copies of the real thing. As for the bucket, well, it could have been made of leather, metal, or a woven basket, depending on how fancy the palace was. What did they hold inside that bucket? Scholars believe it carried holy water, pollen, or maybe both at once. The cone got dipped into the bucket, then shaken like a modern-day showerhead, sprinkling whatever was inside onto people, objects, or even trees. In the old Akkadian language, the bucket was called a bandudu, literally bucket, and the cone a mulilu, which translates to purifier. That pretty much tells you everything. These were tools for a ritual cleaning, washing away bad luck, evil spirits, or anything else you didn't want hanging around. But the story doesn't end there. In many palace scenes, these tools appear right next to a stylized tree, complete with flowers or fruit. That's why some researchers think the cone and bucket duo wasn't just for purification, it was also a fertility symbol. Imagine the cone as a pollen shaker, spreading seeds onto the sacred tree, helping it grow strong and fruitful. In that sense, the same cone could tidy you up one minute and help plants reproduce the next. Either way, these twin objects hold a key to understanding Mesopotamian rituals and to seeing beyond our own assumptions. What looks like a simple bag in a carving turns out to be part of a rich, layered practice. These buckets and cones weren't everyday carry-alls.
Carvings of handbags are found in many ancient temples around the world.
They were sacred tools, designed to bring purity and life to gods, kings, and even the natural world itself. Next time you come across one of those handbags in a museum or travel blog, pause and think. You're looking at a window into ancient beliefs about cleanliness, magic, and the cycles of life. So, what do you think? Were those tiny carved pouches simple ritual tools, cosmic symbols linking earth and sky, batteries for a lost energy network, or even calling cards left by time travelers? Let us know your theory.